The world was on fire, the air thick with the acrid smell of smoke, a funeral pyre for a nation's defiance. The horizon burned crimson, a line of fire that stretched endlessly into the void. Behind me, the South was dying. Ahead of me, a fractured union waited to be stitched together with blood and ash. War does not distinguish between the just and the damned. It devours all with equal hunger. I did not choose the flames. The flames chose me. Before the war, I had felt them licking at the edges of this fragile nation, a slow-burning kindling of discontent. My warnings were dismissed as hysteria, my predictions mocked as madness. Yet as the first cannon roared at Fort Sumter, the fire ignited, consuming the land and my destiny with it. They called me mad because I saw what others refused to see. This war would not be a brief skirmish, but an annihilation. Madness. The word has followed me through the years, whispered behind my back, painted onto the pages of history. But I was not mad. I was clear-eyed in a world blinded by sentiment and illusion. I understood that war is not a noble dance of ideals, but a brutal equation. Victory belongs not to the righteous, but to the relentless. And so I became relentless. I was born into a life of contrasts, a childhood marked by loss and opportunity. When my father died, leaving my family adrift, I learned early that survival demanded more than prayer. The Ewings took me in, their generosity both a gift and a weight. They taught me duty, discipline, and ambition, but they could not tame the restlessness that churned within me. At West Point, I found the crucible I sought. The academy shaped me, hardened me, but it did not soothe the ache in my soul. Even in times of peace, I felt the shadow of war, the inevitability of conflict. The South, with its plantations and its pride, was a fragile thing, built on a foundation of suffering. I did not hate it, but I saw its flaws. I saw how it would crumble under the weight of its own hubris. The war merely hastened what was always coming. When I took command in the Western Theater, the war had already laid bare its horrors. At Shiloh, I saw men torn apart, their blood soaking the earth like rain. But the war demanded more than courage. It demanded ruthlessness. And so I turned my gaze to Atlanta, the beating heart of the Confederacy's industrial might. Atlanta fell as I knew it would. Its factories were silenced, its railroads dismantled, its streets engulfed in flames. The fire was my weapon, not born of malice, but of necessity. Each column of smoke that rose into the sky was a declaration. The old South was dying, and from its ashes, something new would rise. I watched the city burn and felt no triumph, only the grim satisfaction of a surgeon cutting away the gangrenous flesh to save the body. But Atlanta was only the beginning. The march to the sea was my magnum opus, a scar carved across the belly of the Confederacy. My men became instruments of destruction, dismantling everything in their path. Fields were salted, railroads twisted into grotesque sculptures, homes reduced to hollow shells. It was not cruelty that drove us, but the unyielding logic of war. To shatter the South's will, we had to render it incapable of sustaining itself. In the quiet moments, doubt crawled into my skull. Alone in my tent, the maps before me blurred into lines of blood and fire. Was I saving the Union, or was I becoming its destroyer? My soldiers saw me as unyielding, a force of nature. They did not see the nights when I sat by the fire, staring into the flames and seeing only the faces of those I had displaced, those whose lives I had reduced to ash. War demands sacrifices, not just of the body, but of the soul. Each step forward left another piece of me behind. I told myself it was for the greater good, that the suffering was a necessary price for unity. But unity felt hollow when bought with such ruin. I carried the weight of it, the knowledge that I was not just destroying the Confederacy, but also the fragile humanity within myself. When Savannah fell without a fight, I felt a strange emptiness. The city was spared the torch, its streets left intact, its people unscathed. Reconstruction loomed, a battle of a different kind, one I had no stomach to fight. I returned to civilian life when the war ended, retreating into the shadows of a country I had helped preserve. But the war never truly left me. Its echoes haunted my dreams. Its smoke lingered in my mind. They called me a hero, a savior of the Union, but I felt no heroism in what I had done. Others called me a butcher, a monster who had laid waste to a region. I did not feel monstrous either. I felt empty. Now, as I stand at the edge of my twilight years, I look back on the firestorm I unleashed. The South has begun to heal, its wounds slowly closing, but the scars remain. The land will recover, the people will rebuild, but the soul of the nation, can it ever truly mend? I see myself as history's paradox, a man who destroyed to preserve, who inflicted suffering to end it. I do not regret my choices, but neither do I celebrate them. War is hell, I once said, and I meant it. But what I did not say is this: hell does not end when the cannons fall silent. It lingers, a shadow that stretches across time, a weight that can never be lifted.